Warnings about the limits to growth are not new. They have been around for centuries. In 1939, the U.S. Department of the Interior declared that American oil supplies would only last for another 13 years, and in 1949, the end of American oil supplies was in sight. In 1970, the scientist Harrison Brown published a graph in Scientific American in which he estimated that humanity would run out of copper shortly after the year 2000. Lead, zinc, tin, gold and silver were expected to disappear before 1990. And in 1974, the U.S. Geological Survey said that the United States only had a 10-year supply of natural gas left. The Club of Rome study, The Limits to Growth, published in 1970, attracted a great deal of attention. To date, over 30 million copies of this book have been sold in 30 languages. The book called for a change of direction and had a clear message. Raw material resources would soon be exhausted, especially oil. In 20 years, the last drop of oil would be used up. The Club of Rome report was completely wrong in its assessment of the time of depletion of almost all relevant raw materials, not just oil. Natural gas, copper, lead, aluminum, tungsten, according to the predictions of the time, none of these resources would still be found in the earth today, assuming continued economic growth. Everything had been used up in some cases for decades. Silver was supposed to have been used up by 1985. In fact, the United States Geological Survey estimated global silver reserves at 560,000 tons in January 2020. This is because the consumption of many raw materials is declining. Companies are constantly looking for new ways to produce more efficiently, that is, to get by with fewer raw materials. Of course, they are not doing this primarily to protect the environment, but to reduce costs. In addition to the well-known recycling, another reason for decreasing raw material consumption is dematerialization. Take the smartphone, for example. It contains many devices that previously had to be manufactured separately. For example, calculator, telephone, video camera, alarm clock, dictation machine, navigation system, camera, CD player, answering machine, and so on. In the past, people had a record collection that often took up an entire living room wall. Today, we store our music as audio files on a tiny little hard disk. And instead of books on paper, there are ebooks. Incidentally, Brazil alone has enough raw materials for the next 500 years, so there is no need to worry about the supply of raw materials for the next few centuries.